broadcasting.
Right. I should have started. Yeah, no, it's good that it's hard because being clear in your thinking uh, is never going to be an easy thing. It's so much easier just to
No.
produce
Like, honestly, like,
reams of
I've
it.
never seen anything like QA as a service. It's like, hey, here's my fucking Jira board. Can somebody external please go through and quality assure that I'm asking for the right fucking thing?
Yeah,
You know, like, what we really must do at some point is offer the service to say, hey, we would like to ingest your backlog. So if you sort of sign up to this notion of ambient attribution, we'll make a plugin that you just connect it to your Jira board, and we'll pull in all your backlog, and then we'll start QAing bits and pieces and putting pricing against them.
yeah.
And then we might even be able to find the funding for you, provided you've got a demonstrable revenue stream and you're agreeing to share some of it back.
Right. I mean, that's a really interesting point, isn't it? So you imagine that situation where there's a company that's in a quagmire of software that they specify, they've contracted to, it's delivered, it hasn't actually done what they're meaning, they're going back, and it's like, it's a complete fucking mess. And if you offered a QA service to that, what you'd be doing is going right back and saying, okay, what's the pure request here? And there would be one, of course.
Yeah.
And you could spend weeks on the pure request. Once you
That's that's what's happening here, right? Like,
yeah,
getting to the heart of what are we asking, how could we possibly hope to deliver on it if it's not clear what you want?
right. And actually, it goes up one level to that one because we're asking it in using a lexicon which is defined in a dictionary. And so we're going through this process of clarifying what a pure idea is, we're not being fuzzy about what we mean by a pure idea. We're talking about a pure idea with a set of definitions over each term that we've got. And that is going to be hard. So if you went to another company, that would be really hard to get to the pure idea, even just to start with. Hugely hard. But once you're there, what you're going to get out is ideas that can be tracked back. So this idea targets this part, and then the QA goes, well, okay, we all have a common dictionary, and you have a pure idea that's well formed, and we pass through QA. So that idea is just going to naturally be tight, well formed, unambiguous, correct, complete. And so the work then that's carried out can be carried out with confidence. And what that means is it's an effective way of if you've got a concept that you want to turn into software, or actually anything really, but talk about software, you've got a concept that you've got something in your head, and you think, oh, this really should work. Now, you might be kidding yourself that you've not thought it through. You might just be able to see it somehow and not be able to explain it. So that's going to be washed through with requests. You might not have actually thought through all the areas that also need to be correct in order to do that. So that's the completeness. And then the guys that you put out the work to, they need to understand exactly what is in your head. So it's that transfer into head onto actual work done. And
Yeah,
asset.
I'm convinced that's a big money spinner for us to offer that, particularly because the business model we can propose is to say, look, half the time people rush through the specs because they don't want to spend the money on per hour conversations, people scratching their heads. But we're like, look, we won't charge you anything. We just charge you a percentage of the end product, and not even that. We know that good value software is useful in more places than just the creator. So we will go resell this, we'll make our money back there, and we'll give you a cut. You take your time, we'll work with you to get your spec very precise and understand your problem precisely, and then we'll outsource it to get it done. I just can't fucking wait.
No, but the beautiful turnaround, because you could just say, isn't this just documentation? And coders hate documentation. They want to be coding. They hate documentation because it backs them into a corner and shit happens, and it's like, oh, then if shit happens, it's like, oh, I'm going to be fucked for it, and that's that sort of thing. So it's actually not, they're not incentivized to do good documentation at all. But without good documentation, you don't actually know what you're going to do. It's going to end with the strategic intent being met. But by keeping pure ideas at the top of it, we're basically getting past that. You don't have to specify to the level of requirement spec as it usually is. What we're saying is we want this outcome.
And it's way more dynamic too. Like it lets you change partway along the line where you're like, "Fuck, this is not going to work."
That's right.
Like
That's right.
you don't have to deliver it. You can just rip it and be like, "This doesn't work because blah 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 blah."
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's useful.
Yeah. We've gone down this rabbit hole. There's no rabbits in it. We'll try another rabbit hole. But,
which makes it not a rabbit hole. It makes it something else.
But what you don't have is the death march, where you've been forced to specify too much upfront, and you have a contract, and so everyone has got to sit there with their soul bleeding away out of their arse.
Oh, right.
Trying to do something that you know is not going to work.
Horrible death matches that I ever had to partake in was somebody once decided that, first of all, we had a very loosely specified project in the first place, and then they decided that version 2 of this very loosely specified thing must be delivered upon. And
I bet there was a date. And it's like that's all wrong. And that whole agile thing was basically, it's almost like a trades union reaction to that kind of thing. But the problem with that is you're not giving any kind of control to people with money. You're not giving respect to the guys who are actually money.
Yeah, and like, do the guys with money really care that much about time if it doesn't cost them anything extra?
Yeah, and do they care how? Do they care how, or do they actually want an outcome? They want an outcome because that's the level that they work on, and that comes down to the information gradient. So the guys that want an outcome probably can specify the outcome very clearly, cannot give much detail whatsoever about how to get there.
Man, this is going to be fucking great. If we can just get it all fucking together. This is, God, so much money. So much money.
Right, let's get back to it then. Right, in the doc, where were we? Yes.
I had added tactical intent 4.
Yes.
And I said that using it, that's where the be actively used by at least 2 actors needs to be.
Yes, I agree. And it's an interesting axiom, of course, that your tactical intent list should be expanded, even though it seems like, shit, that's a lot of thinking. But what you're doing there is you can lose a lot of thought process by just putting something in a line. Whereas if you're actually going through that process of must, should, could, must not, then you're forced to. Is that line
it's like a stage. Yeah. I like that. This cumbersomeness with the format can disappear once we have an app because we can make it nicer to work with.
Yeah.
By making it fold and collapse and all that. So. Yeah,
but the effort of thought is necessary, and it's that's the force multiplier.
Okay, so we're going to list the concept count. You must list the concept count. It must be the absolute minimum possible dreamcatcher by complexity count.
How do we meet that? What's QA going to be looking at when it looks at that, saying what number? You've got count. So what is the absolute minimum count? How do we measure that?
That one's going to be fuzzy, and I think it's going to be that, you can't look at it and be like, here's a better idea, or here's a lower complexity count that achieves the same thing, where the same thing is defined in Charter or Request 01.
Can I suggest different wording then? So, the complexity count or comparison against other solutions, and
Well, see, that's the problem. Like with must, you're also saying why must.
Yeah.
That sort of doesn't really belong there. And what number 3 here that you just wrote is exactly the same as number 1.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, good point. What I was going to say is on number 2, the absolute minimum. We don't know what absolute minimum is. If we were to say hits on 12 concepts, is that absolute minimum?
Yeah, look, I know what you're asking. How do we answer that better?
Well, you could do must not increase the complexity count.
Yeah, well, we don't know what it is to start with.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess, there must not be. We're sort of relying on the notion that someone out there can suggest a lower complexity count. So basically, you could successfully close this request with a complexity count of, let's say, 15 for argument's sake. And then someone can come along later and suggest a version that has a count of 12.
Right.
That would sort of improve or iterate the
Well, how about this?
the request.
Oh, sorry, I'm not in. Apologies. Give me 2 seconds.
How rude.
Let's minimize complexity count to the lowest possible to deliver the functionality. So what we're saying there is, if we spot a function there that you've added, and the QA says, well, hold a second, why is that? And you don't have a good reason for it, you haven't minimized it. Does that make sense?
Must minimize. Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good enough. It's a bit fuzzy, but look, we know what we have understanding.
Yeah, and we don't have a baseline as well, so we're bootstrapping.
Yeah.
Hey.
Okay.
Right, okay. Right.
So should I say that's not a should, that's actually a must?
Yes. Fair one. Yep. Because otherwise there's no output.
Must produce written material that is continually presented on the website.
What do you mean by continually there?
Well, each time there's a commit in the system, because we've said strategically that we're using Git and Markdown.
Yeah.
Every time there's that is
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
So that is presented on the website, each with every commit.
Yep.
I don't think you should say why in must statements.
Actually, you're right. The why is in the strategic intent.
Yeah. Like, your strategic intent's not clear enough if there's no...
Right.
If you have to say why,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Use the NFT system envisaged. You copped out, didn't you?
Sorry.
You're just like,
Yeah.
as envisaged, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fair one.
Use AI generated NFT artwork for each
Asset. Now we can use asset there because previously we were talking about an asset is the general term which includes requests, ideas.
Well, there's an asset. Fuck. This is the awkward bit, right? Like, you can't call a request an asset because a request is a promise of an asset to come. It's a forward asset.
Right, but the if that was yes, sort of. I think we've got slightly different ideas of an asset. I'm using asset as in any any produced piece of output. So you could argue that the request has output of an ideas unspecified that answer that. So that is an output. If you're just to put it on the outputs, then the request and ideas wouldn't have an NFT.
I think that the AI-generated NFT artwork belongs in each request should have one,
Mm-hmm.
and each idea should have one, and they should be different.
Mm-hmm.
And then when an asset is finally delivered, it takes on the NFT of the idea that specified it.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. That works.
Yeah, and I think that once a request accepts an idea, it can have the NFT of the request.
Right.
But I think that it should be reserved. The NFT artwork should be like high quality, costly to produce, and coveted. So like you make the cool pictures for the request, whereas the ideas are sort of disposable, or we could allow them to be derived versions of the request or something like that. But my point is that once we can generate our own artwork, we can claim copyright on the NFT images.
Yep.
And you can still be an open source project and still claim copyright on images. And we can insist that nobody can use those images without reference to the NFT. So I think the most awesome image goes with the request, and then the ideas sort of less so because they will ultimately be replaced by the request.
Yes, and so the request pack really is the NFTs that go with the outputs that meet that request. The ideas, you're right, ideas are scaffolding. Once it's done, what is the idea? But the effort into writing that idea shouldn't be ignored.
The idea, once the idea is done, the asset inherits the NFT of the idea.
Correct. And all the history behind that. Yeah. And then you've got the output with the NFT, and that may be a part of a request. And so if you look at the request with a bunch of outputs that have met that request, you've got that pack, and that pack together is the request.
Say that one more time, please.
So the ideas generate NFTs which are inherited by the output if it's done. When that output is done, it meets part or all of a request. Say if it's part done, the request itself has an NFT, and then each of the outputs that meet that ID also have an NFT. And so you end up with like a pack of cards, as you're saying.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. And on the NFT, so it did strike me, actually, we don't need to go through an AI-generated one. What would stop me, scribbling something down on a Post-it note and taking a photograph of it and attaching it? That's a copyright. That's my copyright. It could be gash, could be a lovely water painting. Doesn't really matter. But the point is, it's unique, and I own the copyright.
Yep.
It's just like we think the AI thing is cool, which is cool, but
it's really cool.
All right. Yep. So I agree with both of those.
Shoulds. There are no shoulds.
Correct.
What do you mean by could? Could one?
Integrate with the full process from Star Genesis, number of draft. Right. By the full process, really what I'm talking about is having a sketch of where the request idea subprocess fits into all the way through to an output. So we've still got the transition. You've got request, then you've got an idea, you've got QA, you've got escrow, you've got a project, then you've got output. This request doesn't need that whole process to be defined.
Yeah, it does, because it doesn't. That's not the minimum dreamcatcher if it can't complete like that.
But this is not trying to do the minimum dreamcatcher. This is addressing one part of R01. R01 is the minimum dreamcatcher. This is just doing one part of it, but
Yeah, okay, so you swindled me. What happened to this line here? To deliver the functionality. What functionality?
Let's see possible to deliver the functionality. Okay, yep. Okay.
To minimize. I was using this concept of the minimum dream catcher.
Oh, I was thinking about this as the minimum, the scope being just this request, not the whole Dreamcatcher. Okay, right.
The purpose of this request is to deliver the minimum possible dream catcher.
Yeah, so that's like the head mark. That really is a must that should go into R01.
No.
Why not?
It must. I think I got it.
Right, while you're doing that, I've got an issue open that gives detail about what I'm talking about here. Searching through issues is actually a bit of an arse.
Yeah, there's a knack to that. What are you trying to look for most recently updated, or?
No, I'm trying to find, at some point I put down, I think 3 bullet points about the 3 possible end-to-end processes that are what I just described all the way through to output, and I just put it in a kind of shorthand. And I'm
sorry, I can't.
Yeah, I know, it's searching for a concept. I don't even know what term I used, so. Except just looking through all of them one by one.
God, life has got to get better. It's the 21st century. I just played with I got to use my VR headset for the first time in fucking 9 months.
Oh, yeah.
And there's been a lot of changes. They got like keyboards now, and you can have like your desk defined in VR, and you can put your couch in there and stuff, so you can sort of interact with the environment. But there was a new app out called Noda, which was a mind mapping tool, and you could make these 3D mind maps that you could sort of hold and move and pivot around.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
It was cool, right? Yeah. And I was just like, man, like if we made the like Inventor's Notebook be a VR version where every node just auto minted a blockchain, and it automatically, that was the dust of the Dreamcatcher, and then you can work on these bits, and you can visualize the pool in VR and chuck your fucking thing in there, and you can see what your other peers are looking at, because you can because it's not a text document and you're not just looking at a cursor. You can see the avatars of other people and what ideas they're looking at.
That's right.
And then you can see like the history of, okay, show me the year's worth of activity here. And you can see where in fast forward, you can see where all the people are playing with different ideas, and you can like remap the idea space and all the links between requests and ideas. Like, it's going to be just fucking endless fun once we can get off the fucking ground, man.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Right, I found it. It's idea 28, right down at the bottom. No, not right down at the bottom. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 comments in. At the bottom of that comment, the comment ends, makes sense, and starts. So to summarize, what I've done there is what I was talking about with that end-to-end process, which is the could thing we're talking about.
Okay, right. And I'm saying, can I close that by the process that I defined?
Yes, except the reason
I don't think that project is part of the minimum dream catcher, Mr. Maxwell.
well, how do you get stuff done?
You do it.
I disagree. Idea is a call to arms. It's like, let's do it. I'm not sure.
You don't need a project management system inside the Dreamcatcher to have the minimum Dreamcatcher. Sure, that's an advanced form of it, but by complexity count.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. We're kind of what we're doing there is we're kind of mashing idea with. It's not a project management system, but project captures. You remember things like
a project management system or how you organize the execution of an idea is out of scope, I believe, for the minimum Dreamcatcher. You don't need to capture that for the Dreamcatcher to work.
Yes, but what we're saying is actually this might. Let me think this. Yeah. Okay. Right. There's some metadata inside of the project format that actually is already an idea. But also capturing things like comments, suggestions, references. Remember, all that is not inside of this format, but we do have it inside the project format. So I still don't like calling this a project.
Yeah, I think project's going to need a massive revamp.
Yeah,
and I strongly you have not convinced me that a project is required for the minimum Dreamcatcher. What I'm trying to do under Technical Intent 1 must is that I'm trying to say that part of R10 is to define the minimum possible Dreamcatcher.
right.
Like that's part of what we want to pass this request.
Okay, so where is that in the strategic intent?
Good point. I don't think it's in there. Should be.
Let's put it in. How's that? I could add there.
Yeah, but I think you tried to define it there when you shouldn't have. Are you smoking, or is that your background?
No. I'm vaping.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I still vape. It's bad. Flavor steam. I don't think actually even it's got any nicotine in it. This one, I don't know. Might have. It's like you call it a tiny amount. It just saves chewing on a pen. So, you're saying I was tempted to define the minimum version. Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I see what you're saying. Maybe one person's idea of what minimum is. For example, I had an idea minimum involved a project, and your idea of a minimum does not involve a project.
Yeah, so we don't have agreement on what minimum is.
Yeah.
And until we have this process defined, I think that one of the outputs to satisfy this request is a definition of minimum and a measurement of minimum that is complexity count.
Right. Which we've got.
And will help us to figure out what the fuck is the smallest version of the Dreamcatcher.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we don't know is the honest answer.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that of all the tactical intents, number number 4, the self-improvement is that is the minimum dream catcher to me, a self-improving system.
Yes. Yes. Which is why we're going through this torturous trying to use the system to build a system.
Torturous.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I've reduced that now to overall aim is to get absolute minimum version of the Dreamcatcher. Yep. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll buy that. Yeah. That works.
Yep.
Yep.
That's pretty clean, right? Like
That's
that's
not bad.
like
I was just out of, the sheer honor of it. I was trying to pick you up there, but no. That's fair enough. Okay. Right, good.
cool.
Okay, so where are we? We're down on. Well, I've got some edits to find the middle possible features using in constant account. Yeah, that's fine.
So I can dump this, right?
Yes. Oh,
Oh, come on.
hold on. I'm just checking. Yes, you can. Yep, that's fine.
And tested with more than 2 actors was this, so that goes as well. So there's no
Yeah,
basically no options for you.
yep.
Should not.
That's a bit woolly as well, but it's more guidance, isn't it?
Yeah.
That'd
Should not. Should not. Attempt to cover edge cases.
Yes.
And anytime I see or, makes me think.
It needs to be another.
I think that actually it should.
Hold on, I don't know why I put in or attempt to work in serial. I think I meant parallel there.
Always have a single operating version.
Where are you going with this?
Well, you're saying don't. The system can't handle having multiple versions in operation. We are trying to focus on having just one.
Yes, correct. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I agree. So there's a single repo, even though the thing is intended to work with like Chaos Rain and multiple forks. Not yet.
Not yet, yeah. It could manage actual funds. Should I say must include money?
Handle? What do we mean by money? Are we talking about escrow or talking about cash?
Yeah, money, and must handle staking of money.
Yes. With the definition that we're actually talking about the minimum dreamcatcher, not a part of R01.
I think right. The minimum dreamcatcher has to have money, right?
Yeah.
Does it?
Um,
To self-improve?
no, it doesn't
Well,
actually.
it's
No,
got to have rewards, right?
it doesn't need to. No, we could be playing for sweeties. What it must handle virtual money.
No, because if it doesn't, money is the prioritizer, right? And how is it helping knowledge work be produced without prioritizing?
I'm splitting hairs on this one. Yes, let's put that in there because frankly, that's all people are going to be worried about. I was about to say you could do it just for some kind of tokenization, gamification.
Okay, so I'll say that you must handle the staking of virtual money.
Yeah.
And you could manage actual funds.
Yes. Yeah.
You should not attempt to cover edge cases, and you must not.
That's your earlier point on we've got a single source of truth. So we can't go and fork the repo and expect it to be accepted by QA. What's wrong with that with?
We're not in 18th century fucking England, are we? We're in an international stage with a bunch of people whose English is the second language, and they're like, wait a minute while I go and get my dictionary. Like,
oh, come on, out with. Everyone knows out with. All right, okay, so...
I don't know. I've never used that word in my whole goddamn life. Out with. So, like, I'm out with my friends right now. That's as close as I ever came.
I'm out with my comfort zone. It's often used. Like, often, as opposed to always.
Never heard you say it before. How about that? Can't cite it in any document you've submitted before. How about that, too?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you've moved the DC stack. If we're dealing
it's got no merit here.
But part of the thing is to cover modules.
They don't. There's no documentation in there that's needed. There's just code in that repo.
It's going to reference it though.
How? Like when I complete it, that's the asset in the idea. But we've said must not involve any documentation. Like the asset itself can be anywhere, right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
It should not. I'm going to say this sloppily. We shouldn't. If something's hard to do, and it's hard to do because it's in Git and Markdown, we shouldn't get stuck on it.
What, like this document, for example? Now we're in Google Docs.
It's funny on so many levels. Yeah. Should not force.
Yeah.
that are too hard. God, it's hard to say things precisely.
It's like that would be. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to shout.
God damn it, you will not.
Effectively solved by other tools.
Nah.
I know what you're saying. Actually, we don't have a section for "don't worry about." It's almost, isn't it?
No, that shouldn't. That should not. Should not. Should not solve problems that only exist for the
That's a good way of putting it.
manual version.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Fuck, a little bit of work goes a long way. It's hard. This is so fucking hard, man.
I thought we were going to get through both talks today as well. And we're
Yeah,
on
but this is the fucking goal. Like, it doesn't fucking matter if there's an app or a blockchain or what. Like, you can't use that shit to do the thinking for you. This is the hard bit.
Exactly. I think this is really going to be gold dust once we get it right. Right, produce
For each idea.
Request for each idea. Okay. Right. Okay. Just produce or have accepted by a pool QA. Because what's our done there? Our done is we put it through.
Yeah, so this one for each app idea.
Yeah.
Okay, now you don't say anything about the pool and the strategic intent.
No, because actually it extended that.
See, we've picked request idea as being these are definitely things. Yeah. This request allows you no strategic deviation from the request idea format. But it's also saying that the pool and the QA are part of this manual method. We're not compromising on whether they need to be there or not.
Right. So you remember at the top of the call I was saying that I'd created a request idea stub for DC pool QA.
Yeah.
Because this by adding that it's saying, right, okay, how am I going to meet that must? There's no pool QA to submit it to. Now we could roll it into this and extend this.
Yeah, it's not a separate thing.
I think it is, isn't it?
Well, fuck. I mean, once we get the app version going, yeah, there'll be like a bunch of rules and stuff to put in it, but it seems too deep right now. Like,
I think it's actually fairly trivial to do. As I was saying, we could put in a single line.
Yeah, if it's trivial to do, then it shouldn't have a request in the pool for it.
Well, actually, I got the reason I was doing that is I wanted to test exactly how we do the dependencies, because that is a dependency, right? In order to meet that must, there needs to be a pool to submit it to.
Yeah.
So
okay, so we're not debating that we can roll that all into R10. We're just talking about a different thing, like how do dependencies work.
Right, because if we were to split it out into a separate dependency, I think that's right, because the output of this request idea isn't just, I know practically it's only us at the moment, but needn't be only us. So what we're doing is we're keeping the output of this clean so that someone else can plug in their own pool into that and use the output from this on their own pool QA. Whereas if we roll that into this, then we're muddying this request, I think. And by putting
That's out of scope, man. Out of scope. This manual process is not intended to be picked up by anyone else but us.
Yeah, okay. I was still quite like to test the dependencies thing.
Testing the dependency thing's fine, but doing it by specifying QA, like there is plenty of other opportunities in the apps that we have to test dependencies, rather than dealing with something that has a meta effect on the pool. Like the place to there's some, we need to distinguish somehow between the types of requests and ideas that have a direct impact on the request idea process. Those are ones that should be handled with fucking thick leather gloves and a lot of fucking distance, because you change one of them and you change every single request idea that's in there, and you don't want to do that.
That's actually,
because it's fucking new, and I don't want to sit there doing reformatting.
That is actually my point. So take that number one must. So when we're saying, okay, enters the pool, when we have done this, what are we testing it against? So enters the pool. We've been talking about the minimum process, which doesn't go into project. It's basically request, idea, and then QA, pool, and then done, basically.
Yeah, because without QA, I maintain that you can't have self-improvement.
Right.
Without a quality selector.
Right. So where in here do we say we must have QA? We're just mentioning it, but we're not saying anything about QA other than you've got to get into a pool.
Yep. Okay, fair point. So, must tactical intent must define a pool where requests and ideas enter marketplace for funding, and it must define a quality assurance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Two is gatekeeper. To minimum of the pool.
Yep.
And there
Yep. Good. Yep. That covers it.
Cool. So we agreed that doesn't need to have R11 in?
Correct. And they're just stubs, so I'll just delete those now. There's no work gone into those.
Okay. You got to be careful not to copy when you make a stub, don't copy the image, because you devalue the uniqueness or the non-fungibility of the token, and you may break copyright restrictions.
I didn't notice that, actually. Yeah. Right, I'm getting rid of R11.
Okay. Did you really... So I'm looking at idea 12. You have comically left off the L of pool.
This was done last thing, so if I have done... Where?
Run requests and ideas through that short process before submitting to the poo.
Oh dear. Okay, so yeah, that. I don't really go in for that kind of gutter humor. So
Makes it funnier. Okay.
let me just get rid of this. Okay, and that's fine. Right, where are we?
Okay. Oh dear. We're getting there.
Might be a strange position of actually being able to submit something to the pool.
Get it itself.
At least one request for each app. Yep. And just the pool. Yep. Okay.
Result in docs that follow our own guidelines and templates.
This refers to the Tactical Intent 2, gather general app ideas, and it's just saying part of that. This saying part, put them into that format.
Yeah.
It might be being a bit arsey, but it's not incorrect.
Yeah, it ain't actually correct, and you don't need to say it. I think we want to enter the general app ideas into the pool.
Right, of course, because we've already defined in QA, and the QA will require the use.
Yeah, we define what quality means up above, and now we can point at it.
Yep.
That can go too, right?
If you change the tactical intent up at the top for that.
No.
I'll do that.
I think we're about halfway through the doc.
Probably the easiest half as well.
Okay, so I'll wipe out the capture the full extent of the. I'll wipe out the selected section I have here.
Concepts enough to pass out on internal. Yep, that's already covered. Yep.
Oh, that was good actually. By defining pool up the top, we collapsed a lot of other stuff.
Yeah. It's a lot like coding, isn't it?
Yeah, it is coding.
Yeah.
This can go through. Actually, these things can go, right?
Yes, they can. Yeah. Yep.
You don't need to say this is not the primary aim because that's why it's in the could section.
Good point.
Well.
Yeah. I don't know why.
It could. Yeah.
It's like why
it
not?
Could leave a substantial number as
Um, ooh. Oh. What are we saying? We're saying we want all these ideas put through the pool, in which case Stubbs wouldn't get through to the pool.
Into some of the general app ideas into the pool.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's yeah. Saves us a lot of work by changing the goalposts.
Yeah.
But not. That can go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alright. Oh my god.
If you think about it, essentially what we're doing is someone's submitted a half-arsed request to the pool, and this is effectively QA going through and saying, I mean, you could say no, not good enough, or you could be helpful. And work with them.
This is us. I think right now this is us flipping between QA and worker.
Yeah.
But when it comes to QA at scale, we could not afford the time to help people get their like it would be a paid service.
Oh, for sure.
Paid an attribution to get your fucking requests up.
And a valuable one.
Actually, yeah.
As an aside, recently been made aware of the there's a company in the UK, I think it's an international one, called Circle, and they're paid regularly 150 grand recently, 6 figures, simply to do what we're doing now for government contracts, for software contracts, just to tighten up. And also, they don't appear that good at it, but So,
but we know why, right? As soon as you start trying to do this, you can enter deadlock and have huge debates that produce nothing at the end.
Yeah.
Like if you look at that issue we closed, I think it was number 32, where we'd both written some good long spiel.
Yeah.
Number 28, right?
Yeah.
That was a lot of writing to sort of end up at changing 3 lines.
But
that's
kind of to be expected, though, isn't it? Because the impact of not making that change and the impact of not thinking about it is quite high. So it's not in the word count of the. I mean, it could end up with a minus number of lines. I mean, I look quite.
The best.
So yeah, and measuring that, we'll leave that to another day.
Okay, tactical intent 3, which has changed. So that is changed to self-improve. Oh no! What happened? Tactical intent 3.
What did we put?
Oh god! What the fuck has happened, man?
Well, we've got the original down in the detailed. What's the original? Record issues and notes that arise.
We're missing find the process, how it's used, and what format it should be in.
I thought we covered that.
I think that's covered under tactical intent 1.
Yes, it's similar, isn't it? I think we just tightened up.
How about that? I'll just delete it.
In the process defining the interactions. Let's see if content 1 does it. Features. Yes, it does. Yep. There you go. The best tactical intent is no tactical intent.
So what is this then?
Right. Oh, we deleted that earlier on because that was rolled into now tactical intent 1, isn't it? So that is basically, if you look all the way down, it's about putting it into a process document and so on. And, test edge cases is gone, write data on time, that's record issues and notes outside. Yeah, I think that's, we've condensed that. We haven't lost anything there as far as I can see.
No, that's interesting, eh? Like a bit of sort of the way we crafted the first section.
Yeah. And we can get rid of that.
Okay.
We should call this tactical intent 3 now, I guess. Let's not get. Yeah, we've got 3.
Okay, are we good then?
Hold a second. Right, I'm just knocking off. So the first one, define what a request and idea. It's tactical intent 1. Yep. Enter some of the general apps into the pool. Shoot, it's not. To enter the general apps into the manual system. That's different. Copy that up.
Yeah, I changed that.
Yeah. And number 3, use the process itself to improve. Is what we just found must be. Okay, this needs to be 3. And I'm gonna, it's a bit clunky as a title, but I'm going to pull that whole piece down. We're not. Okay, so.
Yeah, it is clunky.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to repeat it. We could just say tactical intent 1, 2, 3. As long as the numbering is not going to change.
Let me get rid of this.
Yeah, okay.
It says in the dictionary a lot.
Yeah.
Where does it say that the process needs to be written down?
Well, here's an interesting point. It should be proposing some outputs, but we don't have an output field. As soon as we come to write any of this down, we don't know where it's going to be, because there's no other document after this, because we don't have a project. Still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Where does it get defined? When we say define,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
why don't I put it up here? Define Well, we know that that means the dictionary. That should be strategic almost. If it says define, it means in the dictionary.
Yeah, but what we haven't got here is any links or any suggestion about where to stick this stuff.
Yeah, that's not part of the request, though, right? That comes with the idea.
Oh, yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah. You're right. Sorry, I thought I was in the idea for a second there. Yeah, that's right.
It's hard. Damn it, difficult. Oh my god.
Well, define what a request an idea is. Do we need to stipulate that you got to write it down?
We don't need to say where.
No, because the idea will say write it, put it here, put it in .md or whatever.
Yeah. The idea is like, this is how we're going to work. And then QA says, did your output match the idea, yes or no?
Right.
And then did the idea match the request, yes or no?
Right. So, for example, there could be another idea that targets this that produces a video and some guy with a whiteboard. That idea wouldn't be picked up by the pool because it's not what we want to put escrow against because we want something permanent, but it will still meet it. Or define it through the gift of song and dance.
The music of my people. Yeah. Okay, shall I copy this over to
yes. Yeah.
All right.
Hold a second. Oh yeah, tag 3. Yeah, it's down there. Yeah.
Alrighty.
Now, where are you copying? Are you copying? That's a trivial issue. Copying it into the NFAs and then into the pool, or leaving the NFAs as it was?
No. I'm copying it into I'm copying it in NFAs because it has not yet passed the pool. The pool process is a pull request.
Right. Yes.
Where is the pull process defined? God, I don't know. Can you imagine how difficult it would have been to set up like the first government? Like, it's easy once everything's running. You're like, refer to blah blah blah, and then off you go. Right?
Writing the Constitution. How long did it take for the US to write their Constitution? It wasn't in the morning. Let's put it that way. And
I watched a play on that. There was a guy called Hamilton. Who?
Yes. No. Yeah.
It took years of campaigning and effectively writing white papers, multiple white papers under different names and all sorts, like fake names and all sorts, to generate the Constitution.
Even the Declaration of Independence, that was a fork of a Declaration of Independence from Scotland. So they cribbed it, and that still took a ton of fucking time. So yeah, further up the stack, the more important it is, probably the longer it takes, and you end up with fewer words if you can possibly get away with it.
Yeah, and the thing is, what made that extra hard was that they had no formal process for taking works of knowledge and improving them, whereas we kind of have the beginnings of that here. So that's why the self-improvement part's important, because it's like, here's a general way to improve any work of knowledge.
Well,
for you to not use this system is to imply that you have chosen less than optimum. That's where we should get to with dream capture. Because if you're like, well, I don't want anyone in the world to suggest how to change it. You're like, okay, that's less than optimal, right?
Yeah. I mean, they to be fair, in the Americans, they did get there eventually. So they put in the divisions of power in the Supreme Court. They had a constitution and a way of altering that constitution, which didn't break the constitution. But it took them a while.
Yeah. And the question is, did it work long term?
Too early to say.
Okay, so the page has published now.
Mm-hmm.
I am just reading it through. like that piece of artwork. Really do.
I like that concept count. That's a good, done.
It's hard. It's really difficult to argue with, eh?
Yeah.
Like it's a single statement that whacks out a lot of debate.
Yeah. Why would you add something when you could
Yeah.
find out, even by alteration of an existing thing, and reduce the count?
Yeah. Yeah. The concept count. I feel like the strategic intent still doesn't quite hit it squarely on the head. It's close enough, though.
Okay. Can you put your finger on where you think it's lacking? I mean,
Yeah, like it's kind of stemming from like even when I spend money, like I just need it to be in the way that we are talking about using it. Like it's a really deep-seated feeling for me that if we can't use our very own system, what's the goddamn point?
well, let's get that in there because the strategic intent is meant to be start with why.
Yeah.
So let's. I mean, we've been that's for a while, but we should. If it doesn't hit the why, or all the whys.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's it for me. It just shit. I'll give it a go at saying it.
And the strategic intent doesn't have to be well formed because it is the why. It doesn't. The tactical intent needs to be precise. The strategic intent gives context. It's that second paragraph you need to extend with the point about, spending money. You really want to know that's well spent.
It's sort of not like it's not what is the point. It's
Well, then
it's like if we can't.
then the overall idea, the concept's going to fail. So this is the test to the concept, really. Yeah. Yeah.
it's about does the concept work?
Yep.
Why do we need to wait until we've got like a fucking Gen 3 blockchain to be able to test the concept even? We don't.
Yep.
It should be faster than the other ways of working. So why not do it
Yep.
for speed, if for nothing else?
Yeah, I was about to edit that to most efficient, but since essentially that equates to the same thing for us, it may not always be the case, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fastest way, concept test. There's a third thing about using the Dreamcatcher for any work of knowledge should be faster than any conventional means. There's a faster thing on top of a faster thing, in that the fastest way to make the actual Dreamcatcher itself is to be using it. And that's a general sort of a concept anyway.
Yeah.
Right, like dog fooding. You should be in your own product. Every fucking waking moment, you should be in your product. And if it sucks, you should fix your product.
Yes.
Not
before you
walk around it.
Things. Yes, I agree. Yeah. There's another point there about we're expecting this to be faster than any other way of doing it. However, we don't at this stage have a neat way of testing that.
Why not?
Well, how would we do it?
If we were to do this system right now with conventional means, that's one test.
Yes, but we don't have the resources to do this twice. And also, the same people can do it twice.
Really haven't do it once.
Exactly. If we did, we wouldn't want the same people to do it twice, because they'd be borrowing knowledge from whichever version went first. So that is just a qualitative piece. We just, we're both way enough experienced enough to figure out whether this is a good idea or not in terms of other systems. But what we need to do is to make sure we optimize this system, because that's the end goal of this one is we think we're going to be able to outpace everyone else.
Yeah.
And if we're wrong on that one, then I don't know. I'm going off to be a painter up the Hindu Kush.
I'm going to be a master criminal.
All right. Yeah, I think those are all good edits. I'll clear some away. All right. Slow read through then. There it comes. Let me see the why around request idea. That. Pure.
Oh shit! He fixed it just as I was like,
Yeah, that's good. How to catch a dream. Start with a request.
how? What did you say? How to catch a dream.
Yeah. Start with knowing what you're asking for. Start with a request. This is really the core, isn't it? It's that how to go from
That's
going from an incoherent utterance to a reusable asset. That's brilliant. I like that.
Could I just leave strategic intent is fairly free form, right? Could I just leave it as
Yeah.
like the strategic intent is the answer to that question? Like
Yeah. Strategic intent is there to add context. It's there. It's only really referred to if you're in the middle of the tactical intent and going, that's not going to work, or what we're doing this for, and you refer back up to the contents. You go, all right, okay, that's fine. It's to avoid, the nonsense that you get in top-down, centralized, say armed forces, where someone's ordered to do something, they don't understand why, they go and do it, and then overtaken by events, and they're still doing it, even though it's nuts.
yeah. Particularly if their own doing it was the event that caused it to be obsolete partway through.
Right? Yeah.
Which is like what you happen. That's what happened with our version 2. It like we could see it was obsolete, but it's like no, you must finish that. It's like, dude, it wasn't even fucking clearly defined in the first place, and now
That's
like
a brilliant
man,
example. That's
like
a brilliant example. And how much? Well, how much did that cost? Because we didn't all have strategic intent in our head about. Is that what we're doing?
we all had real different strategic intent throughout that company, man.
Yeah.
We were all aiming for something different.
Yeah. No, that's good. I like that. Okay. Now, I guess the test, kind of meta test, is if someone was smart enough and didn't mind wading through and trying to think through, could we give this to someone else to actually complete this request? Or at least submit an idea for this request?
We should do it first. We'll have this request, and then we'll have our idea, and then we might like ask Ben or someone else to be like, "Hey,
That would be interesting.
we're actually trying to fulfill this request. Do you think there's enough info here that you could have a go at it, or what?" Because it's fairly. This is maximum malleability for the Dreamcatcher, because the outcome of this request is going to define how we think we should be building the Dreamcatcher for probably years to come, man.
Right.
So this is not the one to fuck it up on.
Yeah.
It's the one to be as open-minded and as objective as possible on.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be an interesting thing. Because if you were to hand this to anyone random, say on Upwork, and they'd be going, what am I getting paid for? And that's not the point. What we need is someone who's actually can work at this level, at this conceptual level, and say, okay, I could write an idea that meets that. And it's not going to be the same as our idea, probably. But that's the whole point. And it's pretty information dense, isn't it? I mean, what we're at, just over 2 pages. That's a huge concept right there as well.
Sort of what we want in strategic intent, right? Like, it's like these are the big hitting fucking bombs.
Yeah. You probably write a book on that second paragraph.
I know.
That's nice. Ah, yes, as well. Yeah, the ideas of the Lego bricks.
They're both the Lego brick. The connector of the Lego brick is the interface between a request and an idea.
Yes.
That's how the blocks connect.
Yeah.
The blocks themselves are not that. They're like, like an idea, an asset, is like an arbitrary collection of connectors to other requests and targets to other requests.
Yep.
The connector itself is the interface between the problem and the solution.
Yeah, right.
That's how the connectors work.
And it's a non-exclusive connector as well.
Yeah. It's degrees of freedom.
Yeah.
But that to me, that interface between request and idea is fucking everything.
Yes.
Like that's the magic in the reuse. That's the magic in the sharing the problem around. Like that's everything to me, that bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something about it. It's really fundamental, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's a bit like
That
scientific
remember
method.
the fucking headbanging we had when we didn't have that? When you were coming back with these things that were like a project plan, effectively,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember. Yeah.
and we
Unfortunately, at
couldn't
that point,
figure out why it was sort of hard. Like,
but it's almost like the discipline around scientific method, isn't it?
hmm.
There's something similar there. It's not. It doesn't equate directly over, but the whole
It's
point
sort
of
of the same in a way. Like, it's
yeah,
like pure problem, pure hypothesis, and then
exactly.
reproducible result.
And it's recognizing that what you don't want to do is to jump straight to, building something because you're gonna be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets rid of assumption. It gets rid of self belief. Because
Yeah,
like one of my biggest fallacies is that like I'll think of a solution to something and then I'll be convinced that it works, but I haven't. There's a bunch of details that I haven't even seen that are fatal to the concept, and so without being objective about it, you can think you're onto a winner.
that's the word right there, isn't it? It's the generating a system that allows objectivity when you're dealing with something that's really quite ephemeral. You got
Yeah,
you got an
yeah,
idea like where you grab that out of the air, and it's like, how are you going to be objective about this idea when you don't
yeah,
necessarily have in with scientific method you got the real world to test it against. We're not really talking about this. We're just talking about making sure that there's an objective method with a large enough pool of people who are looking at these things that you're going to come up with a good solution to what that original half-arsed idea was. And natural selection as well, yeah.